This is probably the most important video that I've ever made on YouTube as it relates to succeeding in the business of real estate sales. And so I don't know how long I'm going to go in today's episode. All that I know is this. This video probably took me, maybe 2 weeks to make for you guys because it has that potential of impact in your business as it has had certainly in my life and in my business. And so I don't know how long I'm going to go, but I'm going to make sure I go through everything thorough. I'm not going to rush through this. And so before we jump into this episode, for those of you that don't know, we just launched our free listing agent training workshop. It is the 6-figure listing agent blueprint. You can grab access to that. There's a link right in the description, right underneath this video. It'll show you exactly step by step how to go out there and build a 6-figure listing agent business. So for those of you that have not gone through that yet, that is now available. All right. So let me share my screen and let me get started. As I do that, perhaps you might want to take something, grab something to write with, and a piece of paper so you can take some notes, because I'm going to go through so much detail that I have learned from this book. And I think there'll just be some really good concrete takeaways for you. All right. A matter of fact, there's actually four main lessons that I'm going to walk you through that will have a profound impact on you as they had on me. All right. Lesson number 1 is what we call the power of compounding consistency. Lesson number 2 is something called success is not free. Lesson number 3, being rich is a trap. And then lastly, I'll walk you guys through lesson number 4, which is when is enough enough? And this is all things that I read recently in the book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, that has actually happened to me. But the way he articulates it in this book, here's the thing, you guys, I wasn't reading this book for real estate sales training, right? I mean, The Psychology of Money. I was reading it because when I'm looking at investing, and I got recommended this book by a lot of my good friends, and I was reading the book with the intent of learning about smart investing habits, but I couldn't help, as I was reading it, I just kept thinking about our business of real estate sales. And these 4 lessons were so clear to me that I said, this is it. This is truly the secret inside of this book that had nothing to do with being a real estate agent. And it was right there in front of me. And that's, I guess, a lesson that I wasn't even planning on talking about, but to raise your level of awareness. That as you're out there consuming content, reading books, going to seminars, listening to podcasts, that you can take the concepts that are being talked about and ask yourself, how can I apply this in my business? And that is exactly what I have done that I'm actually going to share with you guys now. So let's talk about lesson number 1, the power of compounding consistency. Now, this is probably the most important concept for agents to understand if they want to truly reach their highest potential in this business of real estate sales. So let me explain to you what's going on here on screen. I have 3 strategies on the left-hand side here, just as an example. And I have 2 agents that are getting 2 different types of results. We have one strategy where an agent makes 30 cold calls per day and sells 50 homes a year based on that activity. And then another agent who does the exact same strategy, does the exact same thing, and only sells 5 homes a year. Well, how can that be? I have another strategy where an agent is sending 1,000 mailers per month into a geographic farm and sells 25 houses per year from that activity. And another agent who's doing the exact same thing, sending 1,000 mailers into her farm, and she only sells 2 houses from that activity. Why? And then we have a third strategy where an agent makes 1 YouTube video per week, and from that single activity is able to sell 20 houses per year, where another agent does the exact same thing, makes one YouTube video per week, and only sells one house from the exact same activity. How is this possible? What is actually going on here? So let me explain. This is where we're going to really get deep. All right. So follow along. Here's my story. And so as I think about what this lesson's all about, I think about my own story, where in 2013, it was the first time that I had sold over 100 homes in 1 year. And here's the thing. 67 of those sales came from work that I did 12 to 24 months prior. And you're going to see how that plays into this lesson in just a second. So, watch. There's something here called pipeline maturity, and I talk about it all the time. And I'm going to demonstrate or show you in this video for the first time ever what this looks like for an agent who has consistent habits over a long period of time. How an agent that year over year, how they can double, triple, quadruple their business and thus their income without working any harder. What's the magic here? Well, this is the power of compounding consistency. So an agent that does 30 contacts per day, that means they're having 30 conversations with people through outbound prospecting. They're picking up the phone and having 30 conversations a day. Over the course of 1 year, if they did that 240 times, that would be 7,200 conversations that they would have for that 1 year. Now, in their first year, what that agent would get as far as results go, on average, is about 180 leads, which is about a 2.5% conversion. They most likely would set about 9 appointments, which is a 5% conversion. Of that, they'd probably only get about 30, they'd only close about 35, 40% of the appointments they went on, which is 4 listings, and they would only sell 2 appointments. They would only sell 2 houses rather, which is 50% of the homes that they sold. Now, here's the truth, which we'll talk about this in a minute in lesson 2. Most agents, almost all, this is where this gets really interesting, would quit this strategy. I mean, quite frankly, they would have quit this strategy long before 1 year, where they only sold a couple of houses from this activity. They're prospecting 2, 3, 4 hours per day, and they only sell a couple of homes. They would be so quick to quit and to move on to that next strategy would not even be funny. Maybe you even watching this, you say a year, shit, I'm not going to wait a year. If I'm not getting results faster than that, I'm going to be doing something different. However, here's the power of this lesson. That same agent who doesn't stop doing this activity in their second year, they do the exact same thing. They get not 180, but they get 360 leads. Because why? Their skills get a little bit better. And not only do they generate 360 new leads, but what else did they get? 180 leads that they generated from their first year compound on the second year, which allows them to set not 9 appointments, but 36 appointments. They go from taking 4 listings to 14. They go from selling 2 to 9 in their second year. Okay, big deal. Well, what happens in their third year? They don't work any harder. And they don't generate 180, not 360, but over 500 listing leads in their third year. They set 75 listing appointments. They take 37 listings, they sell 25 houses. In their fourth year, they sell 68 houses. And in their fifth year, in 5 years, they're selling 170 houses a year. Now, let me ask you a question. How many agents, let's just be really honest, how many agents have the emotional bandwidth to stick with one thing long enough to get these type of results? The patience, the discipline to stick to one thing. Not many, but those that do see crazy results. You see, when I go back to my business as just a second, of the 100 houses that I sold, so in 2013, when I sold 100 homes, you can see it right on screen here. I did just over $21 million in sales volume, made about $600,000 that year. 67 or 67%, well, just a little bit under 67% because I sold 106 houses, but about 65% of my income. Let's actually put this into context. I'm actually curious. Of the 600 grand that I made that year, times, we'll call it 65%, $390,000 of the 600,000 that I earned was from work I did 1 to 2 years previous to that, that compounded over time to sticking to one thing that allowed me to build an income, because outside of that, I would have made 200 grand. But because of the compounding, the power of compounding consistency, where I was making $200,000 a year, it allowed me to make $600,000 in 1 year because of this principle or because of this lesson. I didn't work any harder. I didn't work, 6 times harder to make the money. I worked the exact same that I was always working. It was just compounding. So watch. This is called pipeline maturity. Now I've got another example for you. This is Tim Heil. He has a similar story. Let me share it with you guys.
So I kept that habit. The first year, 2010, I sold 18 homes, which, I wasn't rookie of the year. I wasn't, it was nothing special. It was 18 home sales. I had made, it was 135,000 in GCI, but 35,000 went to referral relocation companies, and 50,000 went, or 45,000 went to signs, lock boxes, everything that went into growing my business, my cap, things like that. So I only ended up netting about $55,000. But here's the thing: out of the 18 homes, 9 of them were my friends and family. They were my aunt, my uncle, my cousin, right? Only 9 of those sales came from my actual prospecting efforts. And so I was sitting here thinking that you have to make phone calls for 4 to 8 hours a day, 250 days a year to get 9 sales. So going into the next year, I thought, I got to get a lot more efficient if I want to make 20 sales, right? So I was thinking, if I can get a little bit more efficient, work a little bit harder, then I could eventually, make a couple $100,000 maybe 5 years from now. That was kind of my mindset. So I thought I got to get moving. So I worked even harder, got more focused, got more efficient. But what I didn't really realize was all the work I had done in that first year, 5 leads a day, that's 100 leads. That's 100 qualified seller leads a month. That's 1,200 that I got in the first year. So what I didn't realize was, even though I only sold 9 homes from prospecting, I had another 1,191, qualified seller leads that I put in the pipeline. So year 2, I sold 65 homes, and 55 of them came from all those prospecting efforts. So I went from 9 homes to 55 homes just in 1 year's time without doing any additional work, with basically getting a little bit more efficient, a little bit more focused, but doing the same thing. And then the third year went to 135 sales, 100 of which came from those prospecting efforts. So again, not doing any additional hours, just the pipeline maturing and growing and panning out over time.
So when we look at this, same thing like Tim Heil, the same thing happened to my business. The exact same thing happened to my business. And so when I look at this and I say to myself, okay, well, what is going on here? How is this possible? And it's the power of the compounding consistency year over year over year over year of an agent doing the same thing year over year. Well, in the book, he talks about Warren Buffett, of course, right? One of the world's best, most famous investors. And when you look at Warren Buffett's net worth, right? When you look at his net worth, you can see on screen, and he tells this great story inside the book, that his net worth, if you look at it, 92 years old, He's now worth over $100 billion. However, half of that wealth was generated in just the last 10 years. If you look when he was 83, he was worth 58 billion. If you look at when he was 72, he was worth 36 billion. What does this mean? You guys, this means that from 30 billion to 100 billion, that's $70 billion. That's 70%, 70% of his net worth was accumulated over the last 20 years. You could see that his net worth rising, how small, well, it's big numbers, but in comparison to where he's at now, that the 70% came over the last 20 years. Well, why? Because he was staying disciplined, doing the same actionable things over a very, 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 very long time. And they talk about that strategy a lot in the book. That he wasn't, trying to pick this winning stock and that winning stock. He wasn't doing that. He was doing the consistent investing that compounded over a long period of time, which allowed him to win at the level he's winning. I also experienced this, not just in my real estate sales business. Most of you have seen this very thing happen right in front of your eyes, right here on my YouTube channel. Watch. Let me show you. Check this out. Look at this is my current YouTube channel right now. We're sitting at 110, just over 110,000 subscribers. Underneath here, you can see these are my lifetime results starting back in October 20th, 2013, which is when I launched my very first video. And you can look at the growth and you'll see the exact same power of compounding consistency happen. Watch. 2013, I launched my first video. I start uploading videos like crazy. I'm still doing the same thing today, okay? Doing the same thing today as I was in 2013. Okay, so this is 11 years ago. You can see these subscribers update in real time. So 11 years ago, and a year after doing this, look at the screen, you guys. Just about a year of uploading videos to YouTube, 3 to 5 videos per week. For a year, I get 7 subs. 7 human beings to say, yeah, I'll subscribe to you. How many people would have quit? This is a year. This is a year of uploading 3 to 5 videos per week. 3 to 5 videos per week. That's 15 videos a month. 180 videos made in that 1 year to get 7 humans to subscribe. How many people would have quit? Look, 2 years into the game, I went from 7, made another 180 videos. Okay, now we're 360 videos deep. Went to 11 subscribers. 4 more people in the following year hit that little stupid red button and subscribe. 360 videos into the game. Well, let's do another year. Oh, geez, another 180. Another year of uploading 3 to 5 videos per week, just like I'm doing now. No different. I stay the same. How many people would have quit? No results. 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17. 11 subscribers. How many people would have quit? Then we go to 2018. I finally reached 100 humans. 100 people said, oh yeah, we'll subscribe to this content. You guys, I'm 400 or 500 videos deep to get 100 people to subscribe. Then 2019, I get to almost 600. Then I get to 20, it took me, 2019, I hit 1,000 subscribers. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 6 years to get to 1,000 subscribers. 6. Then 7 years in 2020, I get to 3,500. here's the point. Look at all the growth of this channel. Okay, I'm 7 years into uploading 3 to 5 videos per week into YouTube, and I have under 4,000 subscribers from the time I started. How many people would say, dude, there's no way I'm going to keep doing this. There's no way. But here's the power of compounding consistency. Then I reached 10,000 subscribers in 2021. I get to 10,000. It took me, you understand the power of this 1 year? I went from 3,500 to 7,500 in 1 year, where I didn't do that in the previous 7. In 1 year, I grew 7,500. Watch what happened in 1 more year. I grew to 30,000 in 1 year. And then 1 more year, I grew by 30,000. And then in 2024, I got to 100,000 subscribers. What does that mean? That means that out of 110,000 people subscribing, okay, minus the 10,000 I got in January in 2021, 10,000, 100,000 people, 100,000 of the 110 have subscribed in just the last 3 years. And had I quit way back here where I wasn't getting anything, this is what most YouTubers do, right? They're launching videos after video after video, not growing. They all quit. And had I done the same thing, I wouldn't have experienced the exponential growth of where the channel is today. And this is the same thing that happened to me in my real estate business. It was the exact same thing. It was the exact same thing that happened to Warren Buffett. It was the exact same thing that happened to Tim Heil. Doing one thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, year after year, even though the early results weren't there, you keep your head down. So what are the takeaways from lesson 1? It's really simple. Success virtually is guaranteed the longer you do something consistently. It is virtually guaranteed. It is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The longer you do something. What is also true, takeaway from lesson number 1, is failure is also virtually guaranteed to those people that can't stick to one thing for long term in pursuit of quick results. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, I'm reading this in the book, and I said, wow, does that not represent 99% of real estate agents? Don't get mad. We're being honest in these videos, yes? Failure is virtually guaranteed to those that can't stick to one thing for the long term in pursuit of quick results. Tell me that does not encapsulate most real estate agents in this business. They jump from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. They do it for 30 days, and if they don't see these quick results, they deem the strategy doesn't work and they're off to the next thing. Are they not? Lesson number 2, success is not free. This probably is even more important than lesson number 1. You see, because here's the reality that everyone wants to be successful. It's just that most aren't willing to do what? Pay the price. What is the price? What is the price? And he talks about this so elegantly in the book. The price, my friends, is what I call emotional stick-to-itiveness. Emotional stick-to-itiveness. The emotional discipline to stick to one thing when you're not getting results. You see, the manifestation of that is what I showed you in lesson number 1. Now we're going to talk about the mechanism that allows you to stay consistent in lesson number 2. And there's no better way to show you than this. And they talk about this in the book too. So on screen, this is illustrating the investment into the S&P 500, $10,000 invested into the S&P 500 over the past 20 years. And on the right-hand side here are the 10 best and worst days of the market during that period of time. And here's what's crazy about this, all right? Here's what's insane. When we look at this, if one person rather, has the emotional stick-to-itiveness, the discipline to stick it out even when they're not seeing results, like we talked about, right? Like I did in my YouTube channel, like I did in my business, like Tim Heil talked about. He only sold 9 houses his first year, prospecting 5 hours a day. Most people would have quit. The investor that didn't quit, who would have put $10,000 into the S&P over 20 years, he didn't rip his money out and start something different when on the down days of September 2008, when everybody was leaving the stock market, pulling their money out. They didn't panic. They stayed invested the entire time. And that person would have earned $64,000 on their $10,000 investment. Missing just 10 of the best days. This is crazy. This is why this is so important. The emotional stick-to-itiveness in this lesson is so important. Missing just 10 days. Listen, in 20 years, that's not that many. 10 days in 20 years, the investment was less than half. The $10,000 in 20 years was only worth $29,000. Because when times got tough and they weren't getting the results that they wanted, they changed course. They said, I'm going to chase something different. And that money was only worth $30,000. If they missed 20 of the best days, it was only worth 17. If they only missed 30 days, 1 month out of 20 years, not a lot, they made $1,000. And then if they missed 40, 50, or 60 days, just 2 months out of 2 months out of 20 years of investing, they would have lost half the money. Well, what is the point? The point in lesson 2 is to put both lessons together. Is that if you can stick to one strategy consistently over time and have the emotional stick-to-itiveness to stick to that one thing, you can't help but win at a massive level. But if you allow your emotions to creep in, at the first sign of, oh, this isn't working, I'm not getting results after 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, like most realtors do, and then you change strategy, you're never going to see results. A matter of fact, you're not going to see results, you probably aren't going to make any money. Let me explain. So all of you have played roulette at some point, or at least you know what the game is. And so with the game roulette, explains this so good. Once you see this, you're not going to be able to unsee this. You'll never forget this, I promise, what I'm about to explain to you. You see, with the game roulette, there's a 48.6% chance that you hit red. But that doesn't mean that if you spin 10 times that you're going to hit red 4 to 5 times. Heck, you might not even hit red once. But that still doesn't change the odds, the percentages of you succeeding. Why? There's something you guys call the gambler's fallacy. And again, this is going to change your life. Watch. Let me read this to you. Here's what's going on. This is why agents don't have the emotional stick-to-itiveness. This is why most agents have shiny object syndrome. This is why agents bounce from one thing to the next, one team to the next, one brokerage to the next, one market to the next. And they can't stop because of the gambler's fallacy. Let me read it to you. The gambler's fallacy, also known as the Monte Carlo fallacy or the fallacy of the maturity of chances. This is the belief that if an event whose occurrences are independent or identically distributed has occurred more frequently than expected, it is less likely to happen again in the future, or vice versa. The fallacy, however, is commonly associated with gambling, where it may be believed, for example, that the next dice roll is more than usual likely to be 6 because there have recently been fewer than expected number of 6s. The term Monte Carlo fallacy originates from the example of this phenomenon in which the roulette wheel spun black 26 times in succession in a Monte Carlo casino in 1913. Doesn't change the fact of the odds. The gambler's fallacy can be illustrated by considering the repeating toss of a coin. The outcomes in different tosses are statistically independent. Listen, just stick with me on this and I'm going to bring it all home for you, okay? And the probability of getting heads on a single toss is still 1 in 2. The probability of getting 2 heads in 2 tosses is 1 in 4. And the probability of getting 3 heads in 3 tosses is 1 in 8. In general, if A is the event where the toss of the fair coin comes up, then it's still 1 in 2. Meaning, if after tossing 4 heads in a row, the next coin toss would run 5 consecutive heads, since the probability of a run of 5 successive heads is 1 in 32, a person might believe, here's what gets crazy, they might believe that the next flip would be more likely to come up as tails rather than heads. Everybody does this. Everybody believes this. This is why agents that cold call for a month and they don't get any results, they say, well, I'm going to do something different. Nothing's going to change here. But this is incorrect. And this is an example of the gambler's fallacy. They don't understand the long-term ratios based on the law of large numbers. The event, listen, 5 heads in a row and the event first 4 heads, then tails, are equally likely. Since the first 4 tosses turn up heads, the probability that the next toss is head is still 1 in 2. Has not changed. Well, Brandon, what in the world are you talking about? Why does this matter? Let me explain. I've got a little coin here for us. We're gonna actually play a little game so I can explain to you guys what's happening here. All right. So when I flip this coin, let me get some room on my desk here. When I flip this coin, if the coin lands on heads, we'll count that as a listing appointment set. And if it lands on tails, we will say that that was no listing appointment set. It was a quote unquote failure. All right. And so we're going to look at this as your daily prospecting results, if you will. Now, so I'm going to flip this. Okay. It's right here. I'm going to flip it. I'll be fair. Okay. So let's flip this. I'm going to flip this right now. So flip number 1. Okay. Flip number 1. We got a heads. We just set an appointment. Yay. So in the first one, we got a heads. Let's flip this again. Now, most agents, right? There's a story behind this. Let me just flip it again. Whoop, and we get a tails, so no appointment set there. Flip it again. Tails, no appointment set there. Oh, we got one on the 4th. So let's give ourselves a tally there. Tails. Tails. That's 6. This is 7. Tails. That's 3 tails in a row. Tails. That's 8. Tails. Okay, that's 9. I'm going to flip this one more time, but I just want to make the point that right now, as I'm doing this activity, this would be the example of agents making one call after the next, not getting an appointment, and not understanding that the averages are still there for them, whether they're getting the result or not. But they don't see it because they don't have the emotional stick-to-itiveness that we've been talking about. So they change strategy. Well, the smart agent just keeps doing this because they know that over the course of a long period of time, the numbers will play out. The numbers will always play out. Okay, and we got another tails. All right, so what's the point of this little exercise? Just as an example, all right? Let me explain to you guys what's happening here. I flipped the coin 10 times, okay? I flipped it 10, and it landed on heads twice. Well, that is a 20% conversion. However, I only got the 20% conversion because I did what? I was consistent in flipping the coin 10 times. However, what have we learned so far? would it be safe to assume that if I flipped it another 10 times, that I might not get one listing appointment, or I might get 4? We just don't know because we don't have enough data. We haven't been doing it long enough. The longer we do something, that is where we can actually start to calculate real conversion. That is how a roulette table gets to the point of the 48.5% odds of it landing on red or black. It doesn't just spin 10 times and it says, okay, 5 red, 5 blacks, 50. That's not what's happening. That's what also is happening with your prospecting conversion ratios. You can't do something for 30 days, and if you don't get the result, claim that it doesn't work because you haven't allowed the law of large numbers to kick in yet. Okay, so hopefully you're with me. Let's keep playing this out. So how does this show up in real estate sales, you ask? Let me show you. So here's what it looks like. What an agent would find who consistently prospects day in and day out 240 times per year without ever missing over the course of 3 to 5 years would get an average of 1 listing appointment set for about 40 contacts or 40 conversations. That would be the average. But remember, let's just make sure that we're on the same page. It's not from talking to 40 people. That's the misconception. That is the gambler's fallacy that I was just telling you about. You see, the agent hears this ratio from an agent on a podcast who says, yeah, I set a listing appointment for every 20 contacts, every 30 contacts, every 40 contacts. And then that agent goes out there and talks to 20 people through cold calling or outbound prospecting or buying leads or open houses or direct mailers or doesn't get that same result and says, nope, that thing doesn't work. I tried it. You see, I called 40 people and I didn't set up an appointment. Well, what's going on there? Again, they haven't done it long enough. They didn't have the stick-to-itiveness to do it long enough for them to play to the ratio. And then they repeat this cycle over and over and over and over until they're out of the business. Because 40 contacts only equals 1 listing appointment because of what I just said. An agent makes 28,000 contacts over a 3-year period, 240 days consistently. They set 720 listing appointments over 3 years. It's only then that they determine that the ratio is 1 in 40. It's not you call 40 people and set 1 appointment. Now, that's not even the real secret. Watch the real secret here in lesson 2. This is just crazy, okay? This is the real secret. This is lesson 2. This is the price you must pay for success, which is the emotional stick-to-itiveness. This is how powerful this is. So to demonstrate this in the real world, if an agent prospects every day, they make 30 contacts every day, they prospect 240 days a year, they never miss, they have 600 contacts per month. Based on the average conversion ratio of doing that for a long time, they would set 15 appointments in 1 month. Now, you can't do this once. I'm not going to repeat that. I'm not going to keep regurgitating the same thing. I think you get that point. They did it over a long period of time. As a result of that, listen, they meet with 11 people. It's a 70% conversion. They found that out by doing this for 3 years. They got this average. They took 6 listings, a 50% conversion ratio. They sell 4. That's 70% of the listings they take. As a result, this agent with this type of consistency earns $28,000 per month. They have an average commission of $7,000. They would earn $336,000 that year. Would they do that in their first year? No, they would not. But here's the secret, okay? Watch. Here's the power of this, or rather, the lack thereof. Remember I showed you what would happen to that investor who invested $10,000 in the stock market, and when things didn't go his way or her way, that they pulled out the money, and what would happen if they missed just a couple of days of investing? The same thing happens to real estate agents every day. I've coached over 6,000 agents. I see it every day. Here's the power of this lesson. This agent misses just 1 day per month. Pretty consistent. So out of 20 working days, they prospect 19, but they miss one. They have 1 day where they screw up. And just by missing 1 day, missing that one best day of prospecting, they missed out on 3 appointments because they didn't prospect that best day. And as a result, they didn't set 15 appointments, they set 12. They met with 9, they took 5 listings, they sold 3, and instead of earning $28,000, they earned $21,000. And for an agent that has that type of consistency, which is not perfect, but it's pretty good, they leave $84,000 on the table. This is not a lot. They're only missing 1 day. Let's be honest. How many agents right now of you guys watching this, how many of you are prospecting 22 days a month, which is every working day of the month, consistently without ever missing? We're talking about an agent who just misses the one best day, where before, you see on the 6th day, they don't know when this is going to happen, right? It's like the roulette table. The table is spinning. They're prospecting every day. They have 20 days of prospecting, but they don't set an appointment every single day, do they? It's random. We don't know when those days are going to hit. That's why consistency is so powerful. That's why emotional stick-to-itiveness is so powerful. Because look, if this agent prospects on day 1, they set an appointment, yay, this thing's the best thing ever. Then they prospect on second day, they get nothing. They prospect on the third day, I get nothing. Most agents are like, oh, dude, this is crazy. I'm spending 3-4 hours a day. I'm not doing this anymore. And they stop. Not this agent, because on the 4th day, they set 2 appointments. On the 5th day, they set 3 appointments, so on and so forth. That agent, the next agent just misses 1 day and loses $84,000 for the year based on that behavior. What if an agent misses just 2 days? We're not talking about they only prospect half the time. We're talking about missing 2 of the best days per month. They would only set 10 appointments because they missed their 2 best days of prospecting. They only take 4 listings, they sell 2, and they only make $168,000 for the year. They leave $168,000 on the table because they miss 2 days a month of prospecting. What if an agent misses 3 days per month? And out of 240 working days, they prospect 204 of those days. Not bad, right? Not bad. But you don't know what could have happened on those days because you weren't consistent. Because when things got rough, you said, no, I'm not going to prospect today. I haven't set an appointment in the last couple of days. I'm going to take a couple of days off. This agent only sets 8 appointments, meets 6, takes 3, sells 1. They earn $7,000 a month. And because of that, they make $84,000 a year, leaving $252,000 on the table of unearned potential income, missing just 3 of the best days per month. What are the best 3 days? We don't know. That is the point. The point of having emotional stick-to-itiveness is that you detach from the outcome 100% and you do the activity on a daily basis, no matter what, no matter the outcome, because we don't know when the result's going to happen. But we do know this. We have to be spinning the wheel in order to get the result. If we're not spinning the wheel, if we're not prospecting, if we're not doing our job, then we don't put ourselves in a position to win. Just the same, if I go back to this slide right here, this is like the investors trying to time the market. They invest $10,000, they have a bad couple of days, and they say, oh my gosh, this thing is tanking. They don't have the emotional stick-to-itiveness, so they change strategy. Let me go chase another shiny object, like most agents. And you could see what happens over a long period of time. You could see what happens over 20 years in a career with a real estate agent who behaves this way, bounces from one thing to the next When they don't see results quickly, they bounce to another strategy. If they don't see results quickly, they bounce to the next strategy. So what are the takeaways from lesson number 2? Do you have the stick-to-itiveness to persist when you don't get the result? Or do you allow your emotion to take over? Oh my gosh, I haven't set a listing appointment in 2 weeks. This just isn't working. I'm going to stop doing this and start doing another thing. And if I don't get a listing appointment in 2 weeks, I'm going to stop that thing and start another thing. And that's the vicious cycle of shiny object syndrome. You don't need the best strategy to win. You need a strategy that you can stick to every day without fail. That is what you need that will allow you to win long term. Lesson number 3, being rich is a trap. Okay, let's talk about it. Most agents want to do what? Let's just be really honest, like we do in all of these videos. They want to make a lot of money. Why? Why do they have the vision board with all the things? So they can buy a lot of things. Let's be honest. They want to make a lot of money so they can buy a lot of things because of their ego and their insecurity and wanting to keep up with those people around them. Well, let's break this down. So what's happening? Well, here's the truth. The truth is that creating wealth, real wealth, is the difference between the money you make and the money you keep. That's the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Wealth is the money that other people don't see that you have. But that's very difficult for us as emotional beings that are fighting this ego and fighting this insecurity, because we want people to know how well we're doing. So we need to make a lot of money. We need to work extremely hard to make this crazy income. Why? So we can blow it all on things to try and impress people. And here's the thing that the book talks about so well. Morgan talks about this. He said the problem with this, the problem with being rich, which is a trap, is as you elevate your income and you spend that income, you have to maintain that lifestyle, which is we're going to talk about in lesson 4 in just a second. And nobody thinks you're cool for the things you buy. They think the things you buy are cool. What does that mean? When you drive up at the light in the red Ferrari and you did it because you're seeking approval or affirmation from other people, you don't get it. They like the car, they think nothing about you. And people are doing it for the self-image, for self-ego, for their insecurity. If I get this fancy car, then people will think differently of me. Guys, I did it. And what ends up happening is you chase these things, and oftentimes when you get them, you say, wow, it wasn't worth it. It actually wasn't worth what I had to give up or sacrifice to get the thing, because you find out, wow, the thing actually brings me no happiness. People actually don't give a shit at all. And I actually have more stress now to maintain this Ferrari, all the maintenance and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can't have my kids around it because I don't want them scratching the damn thing. And it causes you more angst than happiness in many cases. And so being rich, making a lot of money just to turn around and spend it all to impress people that don't care, is the trap that we all fall into. Let's be honest. And wealth, which is what I believe that what most people, if they're being very, very honest, what they actually want is the money you keep from the money you earn, because you're buying freedom with that money. That's what we really, really, really want, is the freedom to do what we want when we want with those that we want to do it with. Is it not? Which brings us into lesson 4, which is, when is enough enough? Because most agents, like we just talked about, chase more for the sake of more because it's what they believe they should want, versus what they actually want. They start in business with a goal of earning six figures as an example. Then they hit that lifelong goal just to find out that there are other agents earning more. They find out, wow, there's agents making $250K. I want to make $250K. So they chase that because they start comparing themselves to the people on this, what we call imaginary ladder. And the book, I'm going to quote this from the book. Morgan says, there's no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and you don't need. There's no reason for it. There's no reason to do that. And he gives some really good examples. Bernie Madoff is a great example. Very successful businessman, very wealthy man. It wasn't enough. He had to get more money. So what did he do? Created the world's biggest Ponzi scheme and found himself in prison because enough was never enough. Because we couldn't settle that I'm going to get more for the sake of more. And oftentimes, more leads us to do things that are against our own core beliefs for the sake of more. I have another really good example. This happens all the time in real estate. And this reminds me of an agent that I coached about 6 years ago. It's a sad story. He was a full-time teacher when I met him. He was making $65K a year. We worked together for about 3 years. After that period of time, he was earning about $300K per year as a full-time agent. He was doing really, really, really well. He was able to pay off all of his debt. Things were going extremely well for him, really good. He got out of a job that he didn't love, doing something he absolutely loved, giving him the income and the lifestyle that he always wanted for him and his family. After we got to that point, he stopped coaching with me, and we caught up about a year ago to see how things have been going. And I was shocked at what he said had happened. And the book reminded me of this, which I'm going to share with you. He told me he was a full-time teacher again. I said, what had happened? He said, well, I started joining all these mastermind groups and they were talking about how to scale my income. So I started buying rental properties. I started a team. I bought a commercial building to house my team. I started having to buy all these leads and all these expenses to service the team. And my tenants, because I wasn't set up properly, they stopped paying some rent. I lost those rental properties. The team thing just didn't work out like I heard all these other teams were working out. I had to foreclose on my commercial building. I filed bankruptcy. I had to get out of real estate and get a job. When the whole time he was doing great. He went from $65K in his full-time job to over $300K full-time in real estate. He changed his entire life. He paid off all his debt. He was financially free, but enough wasn't enough. You see, comparison is the thief of all joy. He started joining these mastermind groups, seeing, okay, wow, these people, they got rental properties. I'm going to start doing that. Start buying some rentals, doing some flips. Ooh, a team. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Let me do that too. Started hiring salespeople, bringing on staff. Oh, you can get actually your own office for this. Okay, I'm going to get an office for the team too. Well, I got to supply all these agents with all this stuff. And in many cases, it's a revolving door. Happens all the time. Enough wasn't enough. So the takeaways from lesson 4, be sure you're focused on what you actually want and not comparing yourself to others or focusing on what society leads you to believe you should want. So let's recap. Number 1, we have to focus on consistent action and delay gratification. Be skeptical of things that offer quick and easy results. Number 2, results come from sticking to one strategy over the long term and fighting against emotional urges to change strategies during the downtimes. Remember we talked about the power of stick-to-itiveness? Number 3, focus on keeping the money you earn versus spending it to try and impress others. Money earned should be spent to buy you freedom, not material things. And then lastly, number 4, set and fight for goals that mean something to you, and be sure you're not fighting someone else's battle.